Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turan here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Dwarves, and I'm facing off against an Empire opponent who I believe has set up a little bit of a fortress over here. And yeah, this is always a tough thing for the Dwarves when you're playing against a faction like Empire who sets up and they just go to the absolute furthest corner of the map and just spam siege units. He does have a cannon as well as the Sunmaker. So it definitely is a really, really rough proposition for the Dwarves to have to march through all of that. So regardless, I have a front line of, it's kind of a mixture of Longbeards with great weapons and then just standard Longbeards. Against the Empire, they also have a very kind of mixed assortment of infantry. So as the Dwarves, you need to accommodate for that. So bringing a mixture of, the armored and, well, they're all armored, but the shielded Longbeards is a pretty good choice for absorbing missile fire. And then you also need to mix in the Longbeards with great weapons to deal with the greatswords. And also on that same note, the Empire usually does bring cavalry, but in this particular game he didn't. But that's why I like to bring two groups of dwarf warriors and put them on either side of your formation, because if he does get some cavalry cycling going on, these guys have charge defense against large foes, and again, they're pretty decent fodder for cavalry and they can hold the line. So also a group of slayers here. I have a group of thunderers for armor piercing against enemy lords, and then also a group of regular quarrelers who are very, very good at battling enemy missile infantry. Then on top of that, guys, I got two gyrocopters, so they're pretty good at harassing and can serve a multitude of purposes. So my opponent just straight to business. He has a whole back line of handgunners. Look at all those freaking things. Then he has three great swords here. He has a light wizard to net me down, most likely, general of the Empire with a potion, and the Sunmaker and a cannon. So pretty much everything he has armor piercing. And to make this even more frustrating, he's going to be netting me down. And I do have a fairly tight formation, a little wider than usual, but again, it's going to be very, very weak to the nets. So right now, the Sunmaker and the cannons are coming in here, and the Dwarves, they're just being absolute troopers, marching through all of this artillery fire here. So definitely a very, very tough proposition. I tried to send my gyrocopters up to get a little bit of harass, but unfortunately he has this huge backline of handgunners, so I had to retreat immediately. And again, I couldn't really pressure him at all. I just had to weather the storm, and you can already see I'm taking pretty substantial losses across my army. But regardless, the Dwarves with their high armor, they're doing pretty good. This guy's maybe taking about 10% of his HP in damage, but I am taking damage all throughout my army. These Thunders are starting to take quite a bit of damage, and definitely very rough. But regardless, I do have the Dwarvish cavalry over here. The Slayers, they're the best bet for circling around and flanking these type of positions, so we'll see how it goes. But he is focusing my Thunderers here, which is a pretty good choice, because those guys can do pretty devastating damage against greatswords, against his general of the Empire, just most of those high-tier Empire infantry and units in general. So again, the Sunmaker continuing to do pretty decent spread of damage across my army. And the range on the Sunmaker, guys, it's actually really far. I believe it's 480, so that might be one of the farthest in the game. You guys will have to let me know if there's one that's further. So unfortunately for me, I do get netted down here. You guys will see, I believe it's coming. I saw the area of effect toggle, but he may have canceled it, waiting for me to get just a little closer for all these handgunners. But thankfully, I do have these shielded Longbeards in the front, so they will, at least have that defense against all this awful missile fire they're going to start taking here in a moment. So you can see they got their shields up for Harambe, and now the net is indeed coming. So you can see focusing right on this Runesmith, and he is just unfortunately exposed here in the middle. I'm taking all this cannon fire. Thankfully, it didn't get all my troops, so I'm still able to advance some of my formation, but regardless, I'm still taking an absolute pounding here, and it's continuing to net my troops down. And man, this is definitely a very, very rough game here. You can see my Quarrelers and Thunders are pretty much done for. I mean, they've taken massive losses, and again, thankfully the Dwarvish leadership is very high, and they're still confident despite taking such a beating. So finally, I'm able to get some of my Longbeards with great weapons, who thankfully didn't take that much damage in here, and they're going to be fighting the greatswords, and they do have a Thane mixed in here with him, so this Thane should do pretty well. He doesn't have armor piercing himself, but he does have pretty high weapon strength regardless, so he'll be able to hopefully turn the tide of this battle. Over here, I did get another group of, I believe, Dwarf Warriors who will get crushed by these greatswords, but unfortunately, I just needed to get them up here so they would obstruct these handgunners, because you guys can see the handgunners were targeting them. And one of the issues with handgunners, as opposed to like crossbowmen, is that if they don't have like a direct line of sight, I wonder if the dwarves' height matters. Like, I wonder if they were like a little taller than these greatswords, if the handgunners would be able to shoot them. Kind of a funny thing, but regardless, my forces are finally advancing, getting on the move. The Runesmith's going to get in there and use the Rune of Wrath and Rune here in a moment. And Ungrim is in here fighting against these great swords. And wherever Ungrim is, he's just absolutely going to just crush these guys once he gets in here and fights. And looks like he's waving out around his axe, but there he goes. And you can see just with that one swing, he takes out 3 of those great swords. So the front line's engaged, which is a pretty optimal situation, because now most of these handgunners are kind of combat ineffective. So you can see my opponent wisely starts to move his formation over here, so then he can get a decent line of sight right here. But, you know, on that same note, the Slayers got around the flank, the Dwarvish Cavalry, and they're just so good for this because, again, the handgunners, they don't have really, you know, any armor, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 20 armor. So that's perfect for the Slayers, who have very high weapon strength and great combat stats. And you can just see the Slayers chasing down this horde of low-tier Empire troops here, which is pretty classic. But another thing, guys, is the Slayers also have this ability called, where is it? It's over here somewhere. It's like whirling axes. What is that? So with 2 axes, they can deftly whirling them at high speed to deflect incoming missile fire. So they actually have something built in against missile fire, which is pretty interesting. So I don't know, I've never tested the effectiveness of it, but you know, I'm hoping it's a tooltip that is actually accurate. So thankfully I also did get another group of Longbeards back here who were able to penetrate the line. You can see actually some of these groups are, you know, steady, shaken, or wavering in that area, and those Slayers are just, this is the second group of handgunners that they've sent broken off the battlefield. And also one of the downsides of deploying so far against the backside of the map is if you're bringing a lot of low leadership units and they're very close to the exit of the map, they're just going to break and be gone. I won't even need to shatter them. They'll simply just retreat. So the Slayers are able to catch up, and the General of the Empire is kind of back here harassing and, you know, knocking some of my dwarves around. But eventually I'm just going to switch my focus onto him, and I do have the Runesmith and the Thane coming because, again, the front line was going okay. As you guys can see, he has, you know, a few, like, groups here of great swords. Yeah, he has this very healthy group, but these Longbeards with great weapons mixed with these Longbeards and these Coilers, as well as the Slayer King, will easily be able to clean them up, and it looks like they're going back to get that cannon now. So right now the Slayers do come in here, and Slayers, again, are going to get an anti-large bonus against this guy, which is going to be pretty good. And you can see, guys, we'll take a look at his HP, and you can see it's rapidly dropping. So I believe he did. I'm not sure if he got a chance to use his potion, but at this point he's broken. Yeah, the Thane was there also, so that was a big part of it. So what's really good about that, and also the gyrocopters we're shooting with their anti-large and armor-piercing missiles, is that if on this, when you play that back of the map like that, guys, you are taking a risk because now his guys are going to rout off and, you know, not come back. Whereas it would take my guys, you know, since I'm on this side, it would take me a little further to get to the corner. But regardless, the Slayers are continuing to press the advantage. He was able to break some of my Longbeards here with the crossfire. And you see, now that he's up on this hill, he's going to have a very good angle to fire, and he's shooting down at my Slayers, but they do not care. They're going to get netted and take these bullets like champs. But I did send some of these gyrocopters into melee. They're pretty low on ammunition and HP, and I figured that if they got in there and shut down these 2 groups firing on my Slayers, it would be a cost-effective situation. So thankfully that was going, but regardless, I'm just waiting to get out of these nets. And I did bring the Slayer King over here because I knew this was his last most important pocket, and I wanted every resource I had to crack it. Over here, my Longbeards with great weapons are just continuing to chase off the great swords, and, you know, the Sunmaker doesn't look like it's fired for a while. I think it's just kind of, in this close proximity, definitely not effective, but I do have some Dwarf Warriors and Longbeards going after it. He may have turned off the fire just so he didn't get collateral damage on his own units, but regardless, these beat-up Dwarves should be able to handle it. And again, these greatswords are broken off the field, guys. Definitely a good situation. So right now, my tattered forces are pushing up the hill. They're definitely tired of getting shot at, not happy about getting netted for the past 45 minutes, and I did use the Rune of Oath and Steel, but again, these handgunners do have armor piercing, so it's not going to be the biggest deal in the world. But slowly but surely, guys, we advance. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this because it's mostly just, you know, the Slayers advancing, cutting these guys down. Did a little bombing run there with the gyrocopters to finish it off, and again, oh, look at that, actually, it was pretty cool and did a little bit of damage, it looks like. So you guys can see, you know, the beginning of that battle looked really, really grim. I was taking massive siege hits, but, you know, once the dwarves get in there and, you know, start going fisticuffs, you can never count out the Slayer King, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that dwarf game, and good game to my opponent, Chemisar. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys have an excellent weekend. Take care. More content coming soon.